We have a small but hearty group. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor on this Sunday before the 4th of July, July 2nd. We are exploring lots of other paradigms of thought this morning. I am doing that with you, and I hope that I'll get some feedback from you as well. I'll open with my welcome by reading the Territorial Acknowledgement written by Sean Neil Barron. We gather together as a community of seekers to honor the interdependence of life, to respect the dignity of all, and to honor the land we walk humbly upon. Friends, let us acknowledge that we walk upon the traditional territories of the Wabanaki Alliance and specifically of the Penobscot tribes, the original nations of this land who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forward as we journey and worship together. Blessed be. Now, a word from our sponsors. Some brief announcements. As you can see by your order of service, the notes in the inside, that we will be having our anti-racism book group this morning after the service, maybe about 11:30 downstairs in one of the SEE rooms. Just look for us. I'm pretty sure it's the one with the big TV screen. Also note that next week, July 9th, and I'm sorry I'm going to miss that again this year, is our Sunday, our annual Charlie Howard Memorial Service. This year we are delighted to have as guest in our pulpit Allison LaPointe. She is the vice chair of the Wabanaki Two-Spirit Alliance. After the service, there will be the traditional and annual walk down in the honor of Charlie Howard, walk down to the bridge. And do know that we are still planning the UUSB drumming circle to meet, so those that go down to the bridge can walk back up the hill to join us for drumming. I want to remind you with such a full heart that July 16th and the 30th are our last two Sundays having Reverend Rebecca in our pulpit. The last service with her, led by her, will be July 30th. So I hope everybody who has appreciated her being our sabbatical minister for this past 6 months will attend that service and say goodbye to her and tell her how much we have enjoyed having her with us. Just beware, the next Sundays, August 16th and the 13th, there will be no church. I hope that there's no disagreement that the worship team needs to have a little bit of a break. We want vacation too. So there will be no official church here on those two Sundays, the 16th and the 13th, the 6th and the 13th of August. And Drew will be back in the pulpit on August 20th. Yeah. And with that, I turn it over to John for our introit.
Just pop it back down. We have a height differential here, so I'm not going to use the I'm not going to use the thing. All right, our chalice lighting this morning. Lighting our chalice is Patty Alcott. Thank you, Patty. So it's called Chalice Lighting for a Service on the Separation of Church and State, which this isn't exactly that, but here's the chalice lighting. This chalice burns with twin flames. The first flame burns for those who seek and defend the right to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning so that each person may live according to conscience in a democratically elected society. The second flame burns for the defenders of freedom against who would impose their own religious beliefs on others through intimidation or legislation. May we tend this fire always, ever vigilant and courageous in the struggle for freedom and justice for all. Blessed be. Our opening hymn this morning is number 170. We are a gentle, angry people. We're going to do verses 1, 4, 5, and 6. Many of you probably know the tune. It's up on your screen, so you can look at that as we sing. So please rise as you're able.
No, that's okay. For those who feel still young at heart or who would like to talk a little bit about some of the themes this week, as well as any children, I'll meet you down at the rug. I can always count on Dave Patterson to be here. So, pardon my notes. I didn't have a book to read because normally we would do something related like 4th of July parades, patriotism. I'm kind of taking us in a little bit different direction today. But I was thinking about our Declaration of Independence, and then I was thinking about our declaration as UUs, which really encompass our 7 principles. So a brief moment to share about that, because The 7 principles are our UU-USB covenant. It's a way to promise to be with each other and with our country and the world. So, do you know what affirm means? No? Dave Patterson, do you know what affirm means? Okay. Yeah. It's promoting, talking about, defending. It's encouraging. So I'm going to go right to the 5th principle, which reads, to affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations, UUSB, the UUA community, and in society at large. So, have you been part of the downstairs program? No, not at all. Well, then I may have to go back to our other youth here, Dave Patterson, to talk about how do we talk about this principle downstairs? You sing about it. So what part of the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process does that translate as? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have been passing it back and forth. Dave talks about just working as a group and learning how to work in a group and learning to be part of what we would call a team. I was going to say, don't you sometimes sing that we each have a voice? We each have a voice. We can speak up. We can speak up for ourselves, and we can speak up for others. So that's one of our declarations. And the other one is the 7th principle, which reads, we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. So, do you know, and what's your name? Rose. Do you know anything about spiders? Spiders. Do you know anything about webs? So one of the things that's so cool about a web, I even was taught this by my adult son when we were trying to get a sense of how the internet works, is that if there's some kind of like thing happening out on this web, does the spider know that? Yeah. Yep, it kind of tugs and moves, and we're sort of all connected. So, of course, that would be an adult version of the internet, but it would also be how we think of being all interdependent, like a web, that we're all connected. We are all one people of the earth, and we need each other, and we respond to each other. So, we help each other. So on July 4th, our declared Independence Day, that was an idea and a mission, kind of a mission statement, a goal that we fought a war for. And that was 257 years ago in 1776. So my question to everybody, maybe to Dave, did we do that completely alone? Okay, I hear Lee over there saying we had help with the French and the Polish, and I was going to say, did we have help? And then who helped? So yes, the French, and probably General Lafayette was probably one of those that got a lot of attention. There was a little girl, I don't think she was that little, who in the Boston area did a ride. Paul Revere gets a lot of that acknowledgement, but there was this other woman, young girl, I don't know whether her name was Sybil or something, but she rode to tell the rest of the farmers out in the greater colony of Boston that the British were coming. So she definitely helped. Our native tribes, our indigenous peoples helped. And the Hessians, I didn't know about the Polish, Lee, but the Hessians, who were Germans, they helped. We were united with support from others who believed in our mission and our goal. We collaborated to create this new idea called democracy. So that's some of my thoughts this morning. I didn't search the public library for a book on that theme, but if there isn't one, there should be one. So
A new idea.
It's not a new idea. I know there were some French philosophers who actually wrote about that as well. And maybe all the way back to the Greeks. Yes, absolutely. So thank you for joining me on the rug. Thank you, Dave Patterson, for your voice. Thank you.
This is the time in our service where we share with generosity our abundance as we pass the plates, and John will play something for us. Thank you for the blessing of your generosity. Blessed be. Our reading this morning is excerpts from the Declaration of Independence. It's actually the first couple paragraphs and the last paragraph. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between, and if you haven't read it in a while, you might want to review that as we get towards the 4th of July. So this is in Congress, July 4th, 1776. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them in this separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Then on to the end. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Blessed be.
Just are seeking justice. The weak are reaching out for something only children really know about. And some men cry We are all in this together. I know it seems easy to say, but I don't use the word forever. It's enough just to say someday we'll get there together. Someday.
I can always count on John to choose just the right song. So, new perspectives and reframing of Independence Day. In our Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, which you heard briefly with a reading this morning by Lori, the 13 United States, our first colonies in this new world, set out a mission statement for how and why we wished to be a new nation with new and critical freedoms and responsibilities. We wanted to govern ourselves and be free from abuse and injustice. As I reflected on this mission, this declaration and idealistic new covenant written by a small group of founding fathers, despairing for self-governance, aspiring to be unified in a goal that all the signers knew would become a declaration of war to attain that independence. I found myself musing beyond the normal patriotic passions of this holiday. I thought about our UU principles, two of which I talked about earlier in our Story for All Ages, those of our commitment to the democratic process and our belief in the interdependent web of life. As UUs, we do hold a more spiritually honest truth and prime faith directive. I was thinking about the Star Wars directives. The belief and understanding that we are all interdependent. How do we understand this as our deliberate and equitable mission? Knowing that I am personally in no way complete in my own understanding and education on this topic, I have been exploring sources to expand on my own understanding. And this morning, I would simply like to share some of those references with you in the hopes and encouragement for your own independent search for truth and meaning. First, Brother David Stendhal Rast, in his July 4th, 2002 Interdependence Day reflection article published in the San Francisco Chronicle, reflected on the nature of patriotism and dissent, and mused upon Einstein's classic reminder that, I quote, "The world we have made as a result of the level of the thinking we have done thus far creates problems that we cannot solve at the level of consciousness and understanding at which we have created them. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if humankind is to survive," unquote. It is indeed, he added, very much an American and our democratic responsibility to dissent whenever any form of government becomes untrue in its actions to our founding ideals and principles of freedom, equality, and justice. I note that this responsibility has led many people to protest over the past 150 to 257 years and make changes that ended slavery, gave women and people of color essential rights and the vote. So the day we officially declared our independence was only a start, a beginning, but certainly not the end of the final word. We, the people, are still speaking. And who are we? To further inform my understanding, I picked up Richard Blanco's 2019 book, How to Love a Country. Highly recommended. He's fabulous. Reading from his author's note at the end of his collection of poems about his own reflections on home, patriotism, and the promises and challenges of our independent nation, the voices of I contrasted to the voices of we. He writes, in contrast to these more civic-minded and socially engaged poems, I wove into the collection more personal autobiographical poems to add dimension and complexity to the aforementioned themes and concerns through a more private, tighter lens. These contrasts were also meant to reflect the essential beauty and constant struggle of our democracy as expressed in our nation's motto, you know it? E pluribus unum, out of many, one. We are a populace of individual I's who have consented to come together as a we. The challenge has been to continually question who is or isn't included in that we and how to redefine and reimagine it. Overall, we've managed to move toward a more inclusive understanding of ourselves and acceptance of each other. Historically, though, we have wavered and are currently at a crossroads. Are we going to advance toward a broader definition of we, or will we retreat to a narrower one? That is essentially the question, with all its hopes and fears, that is at the heart of this collection, both personally and collectively. He's a very powerful writer. Going further with the idea of we might honor our independence more honestly only if we can acknowledge and honor and remain mindful of our interdependence, that we are and have always been, in truth, in relationship, in community with all living things, with all sentient beings, as well as each other. Perhaps no one can speak more honestly about these interconnections than Robin Wall Kimmerer. In her 2013 book, Braiding Sweetgrass, she shares with us indigenous peoples' wisdom and sacred truth that our human covenant is and must be grounded in the principle of reciprocity with our natural world, with all animals, with plants as sentient beings. Be so that we may say to nature, I welcome, support, nourishment, and connection. I offer, give, provide support, nourishment, connection, and gratitude. We live in a gift economy, she explains. The essence of the gift is that it creates a set of relationships. The currency of a gift economy is, as its root, reciprocity. She shares, in a culture of gratitude, everyone knows that gifts will follow the circle of reciprocity and flow back to you again. Thus, that's what you said, Dick. You give, you receive. The path goes from gratitude to reciprocity, and this dance is in a circle. As we love the earth and its beings love us back. Cultures of gratitude must also be cultures of reciprocity, as this is a statement of sovereignty, a political structure, a political document, and a social contract, a way of being. All exist as a bill of responsibilities, more than a bill of rights. And these responsibilities exist as a pledge of allegiance to the land and all creatures. And finally, Robin asks the bigger questions. She says, for me, the cumulative impact of a special kind of Pledge of Allegiance from my time as a schoolgirl to my adulthood was the cultivation of cynicism and a sense of the nation's hypocrisy, not the pride it was meant to instill. As I grew to understand the gifts of the earth, I couldn't understand how love of country could omit recognition of the actual country itself. The only promise required is to a flag. What are the promises to each other and to the land? What would it be like to be raised on gratitude, to speak to the natural world as a member of the democracy of species, to raise a pledge of interdependence? No declarations of political loyalty are required, just a response to a repeated question. Can we agree to be grateful for all that is given? In the Thanksgiving address, I have respect toward all our non-human relatives, not one political entity, but to all of life. What happens to nationalism, to political boundaries, when allegiance lies with winds and waters that know no boundaries, that cannot be bought or sold? My final and closing thought, note a reference in this exploration of how we move from that 1776 Declaration of Independence to the larger acknowledgement of our interdependence, and from this critical resource which those of us here at the UUSB are now reading as a committed small group. And Lori has mentioned this. The Sum of Us, the 2021 work of Heather McGee. I have only read the first 3 chapters, so again, I'm not speaking from any height of extreme expertise. Yet I have already been informed that the Declaration of Independence belied another reality of those original 13 colony states. It was wealthy, male, white, landowners, colonists, and enslavers who were then to benefit from this independence, despite the philosophically dazzling idealism of the rhetoric. That has caught us. We do attune to that. The economic and political freedom then was for white males only. The War of Independence that followed this declaration was, in large part, bought and paid for by commerce, tobacco sold to the French, totally dependent upon slave labor. Citizens of this new nation of America, moreover, could only be free white people. On Tuesday, we once again, with great patriotic love and zeal and enthusiasm, and I'm not taking that away from any of us, celebrate the 4th of July and this Declaration of Independence. We've come a long way in 247 years. We've freed these slaves, enacted voting and citizenship rights to women and people of color, at this point also to anyone born in this country, enacted voting and and begun critical work to codify and honor the sovereign rights of our indigenous peoples and tribes. And yet, there is so much more work to be done. And we can only do this hard and ongoing challenging work together if we own our responsibilities to each other, to all of us, if we acknowledge the sacred principles of reciprocity, and if we act with the deepest of spiritual understandings that we are all indeed interdependent. Blessed be. Our closing hymn is 121, We'll Build a Land, and it's verses 1, 3, and 4.
Where's the book? Do you want me to read it? Is that 427? What's the? What is it? Hang on. 434. Okay. 434. All right. One moment. Thank you, John. So, as Phyllis extinguishes our chalice today, I read number 434 in the back of your gray hymnal. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Blessed be. Please rise as you're able as we sing our benediction. Words are on the screen.